My name is Celine Rivers. I'm 29 years old, and until 3 months ago, I still slept on the right side of the bed, even though he left a year ago. The funny thing about heartbreak is that it doesn't care how smart you are, how independent you've always claimed to be, or how many times your mother begged you not to fall for the kind of man whose apologies sound like poetry. When it hits, it doesn't knock. It breaks the door down and makes a home in your spine. I wasn't always this version of me. Once, I was softer. Once, I thought surviving was the same as healing. I smiled through bruised trust and tiptoed around red flags like I was dancing. Mom warned me. "He's danger in a pressed shirt," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel like she could scrub the warning into my skin. Dad never said much, just looked at me with that disappointed kind of silence. "You're too smart to be this dumb," he muttered once, when I came home with mascara running down my face and a hollow laugh. That night, I told them both to stay out of my life. Now I wonder if I ever truly let them in. But that isn't where this story starts. It starts with a voicemail. One I shouldn't have listened to. One he never meant for me to hear. "Celine, I never meant to, God. I thought I could keep it from you. I thought I could protect you from her. But it's worse than you think. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. And you deserve to know everything, especially before the truth finds its own way out." I replayed it. Again. Again. Every syllable like a dull blade against scarred-over wounds. Her. The name he never said, but I already knew. It wasn't the first time I'd been lied to, but it was the first time the lie started unraveling something deeper, something buried in the foundation of our entire relationship. The kind of truth that doesn't just ruin love, it rewrites history. I should have deleted it. I didn't. Instead, I got in my car and drove. No destination, just motion. Just escape. The city lights blurred like memories I couldn't trust anymore. And somewhere between mile 24 and 53, I realized something strange. I wasn't crying. I was listening. To the silence between the radio stations. To the part of me that had gone quiet in his arms. That's when the real mystery began. Because the more I dug, the more I learned. He wasn't just unfaithful. He wasn't just secretive. He was connected to something far worse. Something I should have walked away from. But didn't. Because even with a broken heart, I had to know the truth. And because deep down, I think a part of me still loved the lie. They say a photograph captures a moment. What they don't tell you is that it can also resurrect one. It was late. I had meant to go back to our old apartment, but something pulled me there. Maybe it was habit, maybe it was grief. Maybe I just needed to walk through the ruins one last time before I buried them for good. The spare key was still under the third brick on the left, right where he used to hide it just in case I forgot mine. As if forgetting was something I ever had the luxury of doing with him. The place hadn't changed. Not much. The blanket I knitted still draped over the back of the couch. The candle I left behind, lavender and regret, still sat, unburned, on the kitchen counter. I stared at the familiar space with unfamiliar detachment. It was like walking into a memory that no longer belonged to me. And that's when I saw it. A photograph. It wasn't framed. It wasn't even tucked away. It was placed like someone wanted it to be found. A Polaroid, folded once down the middle like it had lived in someone's wallet for too long. The image was faint, slightly smudged, but I could still make out the figures. Him. And her. But not just her. She was wearing my bracelet. The one-of-a-kind, handmade silver cuff he gave me for my 26th birthday. He told me he had it made just for me. "No one else in the world will have this, Celine. Just you." Liar. My stomach twisted as I ran my thumb over the photo. I wanted to believe it was old. I wanted to believe it meant nothing. But that bracelet? He'd given it to me 6 months before we broke up. And that woman was wearing it in a picture taken somewhere tropical, somewhere I'd never been. Suddenly, all the pieces I'd refused to look at before started reshaping into something uglier. Something deeper than infidelity. This wasn't just about a cheating boyfriend. This was about manipulation. This was about identity. Because the more I stared at the woman in the photograph, the more I realized she looked familiar. Not like someone I knew, but someone I could have been. Same build. Same hair. Even the way she smiled looked practiced, like someone told her how. She looked like me.
No.
She looked too much like me. That's when I opened the drawer in his nightstand. It slid out smooth, like muscle memory. Inside, a flash drive, labeled with my initials. Just my initials. No date. No explanation. I hesitated, but only for a second. Because if he had more secrets, I was going to dig until I hit the core. I went home, locked the door, closed the blinds,
Plugged it in.
a folder popped up. SR look when ready inside it. Dozens of files. Images. Notes. Videos. All time-stamped. And all of them labeled with two names, Celine Rivers and Isla Quinn, that was her name. Isla Quinn.
Who is she?
Why did she have my bracelet? Why did she look like me? Why was my name on a folder linked to hers? And most importantly, why did he lie about her being a one-night mistake, when she'd clearly been part of a life I was never meant to see? I didn't sleep that night. I barely breathed. Because somewhere between image 14 and video file 3, I found something I'll never forget, a recording. Of him. Saying something to Isla. Something that chilled the blood in my hands. She thinks I'm loyal. But Celine's not the one they want. You are. You always were. You think you know pain until it grows legs and starts following you. I hadn't said Isla Quinn's name out loud. I didn't need to. It was already crawling through the back of my mind like a shadow with a heartbeat. After listening to that recording on the flash drive, I sat in the dark for hours, playing it back, watching the words fall apart in my head. She thinks I'm loyal. Present tense. But Celine's not the one they want.
They. Who the hell was they?
I wasn't naive. I knew his lies had teeth. But this wasn't about infidelity anymore. This was a web. I could feel it tightening around me the more I tugged. So I did the thing I used to be scared of. I went looking. It started with a search. Isla Quinn. Typed into every engine, every platform. The results? Mostly dust. A few half-baked profiles, some linked to travel photography. But none with her face. None with anything real. Until I got a hit on an old forum tied to a defunct blog site called Echo Mirror. One comment. One user. Quinny's 13. Sometimes being the mirror isn't a reflection. It's a trap. Dated. 11 months ago. IP tagged. City center. 5 miles from where I lived. The comment was under a post about identity displacement, something that sounded like psychological fiction, until I read further. It was a thread about women being used in psychological simulations, mock relationships, constructed environments, emotional trials conducted under the guise of self-growth coaching. It sounded like conspiracy, until I realized they weren't talking about celebrities or strangers. They were talking about people like me, regular women, with just enough instability to be overlooked, just enough trauma to be useful. And suddenly, something clicked that made my whole chest go cold. What if I wasn't just betrayed? What if I was studied? I couldn't shake that comment. Being the mirror isn't a reflection. It's a trap. So, I went back to the photo. Her face. My bracelet. My features echoed in hers. What if Isla wasn't just someone he cheated with? What if she was a version of me? A prototype? I reached out to the only person I knew would listen without thinking I'd lost my mind. Camille. Cam was my best friend in college. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since the fight, not since I chose him over her warnings, but something told me she was the only one who might understand what I couldn't yet explain. She picked up on the second ring. Celine? My voice cracked before I could hold it.
Cam.
I need your help, and I don't know who else to call. She paused. Is this about him?
Yes.
And no, it's about something deeper, darker. And I think I was part of something I didn't agree to. Her tone sharpened. Tell me everything. I told her what I found. The photo. The flash drive. Isla Quinn. The recording. She didn't laugh. She didn't ask if I was okay. She whispered something that froze me in place. Celine. I think I've heard her name before. But not because of him. Because of something else. Something connected to a place you were never supposed to be. I blinked. What do you mean? Cam exhaled. Do you remember that wellness retreat he sent you to? The one in the hills? You told me it was just yoga and silence and detox. But I recognized the name Isla Quinn from a database we studied in grad school. I could barely form the words. What kind of database? She hesitated. Experimental psychology programs. Behavioral observation labs. Human pattern testing. My pulse pounded. My ears rang. The room spun. This wasn't just a breakup anymore. This was something orchestrated, fabricated. And I was in the center of it, without ever signing up. I went back to the flash drive. Opened the last video. It was blurry. The audio cracked. But I recognized my own voice. How much of this was ever real? His voice answered, cold, methodical, rehearsed. Enough to keep you looking. That's all they needed. I thought the worst was over when he left. But heartbreak was only the first test. The real danger started when I stopped grieving and started remembering. After Camille dropped that bombshell about the retreat, my mind went into overdrive. I kept replaying those 3 weeks I spent in the hills, back when he insisted I reset after my burnout. At the time, I thought it was an act of love, a selfless gift. Now, I couldn't help but wonder, was he sending me away or sending me into something? Cam dug up an old email from her archives, an academic collaboration she'd once abandoned because it felt ethically gray. It was with a place called Edenview Institute for Cognitive Renewal. That was the retreat I went to. But when she tried to access their website again, it was gone.
Scrubbed. Archived.
Like it had never existed. Except I knew it did. Because I still had the scars. Not the kind you see on skin. The kind that whisper when you close your eyes. I remember strange things now. Being asked to keep a journal, but only in third person. Being given tea that made my dreams vivid and emotional. I remember a woman in a white coat watching me cry, not comforting me, just watching. Most of all, I remember the phrase that was posted above every mirror in the building. To know yourself, you must first become someone else. I clicked back into the flash drive. There was one last folder I hadn't opened, hidden under layers of encrypted zip files. Camille helped me decode it. Inside was a document. 1 page. Plain text. Subject file, CS. 12 name, Rivers, Celine status. Primary emotional test subject behavioral patterns. Heightened empathy, codependency tendencies. Memory compliance post-exposure emotional catalyst assigned. Est. R.002. Male control, alias. Ethan Ward. Mirror variable activated. Isla Quinn project result. Extended observation successful. Subject unaware. My vision blurred. My lungs forgot how to function. They were observing me, testing me. My heartbreak wasn't a tragic accident. It was designed. Every tear I cried was a data point. And Ethan Ward, my great love, the man who once traced constellations on my back, was never mine. He was assigned to me, trained, inserted. I was the lab rat. And Isla? She wasn't the other woman. She was the mirror, the duplicate. She was the control. I couldn't sit still. I needed air. I needed distance. I needed answers. So I went to the one place I swore I'd never return to, Edenview. It was nearly midnight when I drove out of the city. The roads grew narrower, the signal weaker. My headlights caught glimpses of deer, old signs, fog. And then, like a ghost in the trees, the compound appeared. Boarded up. Abandoned. But not empty. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the main lodge, heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear my own footsteps. A chill ran down my spine as I pushed the door open and entered a place that once promised peace and gave me deception. Dust blanketed everything. But the walls, they still spoke. Dozens of names, scribbled in faded chalk on the far wall. Some crossed out. Some circled. Some labeled failed or reassigned. And then I saw it. CS 12, Celine Rivers, progressive deviation, status. Pending my breath caught. Something moved behind me. I turned sharply, expecting wind. But it wasn't the wind. It was a voice. You weren't supposed to come back. I froze. And then she stepped out of the shadows. Isla Quinn.
Alive. Real.
Standing in front of me. But her eyes, they weren't confused.
Or sorry.
Or scared. They were calm. Like she'd been waiting for me. There are moments that don't feel real until they hurt. Standing in the decaying ruins of Edenview, face to face with the woman who stole my life, or maybe mirrored it, was one of those moments. Isla Quinn was not a figment. She was flesh, breath, bone. And the way she stood there, cloaked in stillness, told me I wasn't the first surprise visitor she'd seen here. I thought you were. I stopped.
What?
A lie? A glitch? A copy? She tilted her head. Gone. Yes. I tried to be. Her voice was clear, almost delicate, like glass that hadn't shattered yet. But the truth doesn't let ghosts stay buried. We stared at each other in the silence that only abandoned buildings can provide, raw, echoing, heavy. She wore no makeup. Her hair was tied back. There was a scar near her jawline that hadn't been in the Polaroid. That detail mattered. It made her human. It made me afraid. What were you to him? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer.
She didn't hesitate.
What they told me to be. She led me to a back room, where the air was thick and the walls still had wires sticking out like nerves. A single file folder rested on a dusty metal desk. I figured you'd come eventually, she said, sliding the folder toward me. We all do, sooner or later. That's why they stopped the program. Too many of us remembered. I opened the folder. Inside, images of women, different races, ages, appearances, but all marked with one thing in common. CS followed by a number. Control subjects. I saw my own face again. And hers. Side by side. Labeled CS 12. Rivers, Celine, core variable. CS 12M. Quinn, Isla. Mirror variable. I blinked at the N. Mirror. They modeled me after you, Isla said, almost like a confession. Not the other way around. I was the second draft. The controlled version. What does that even mean? I whispered. Her expression tightened, jaw clenched. It means I was trained to think like you, act like you, love like you, only without the flaws. They told me your patterns, your past, your emotional triggers. I was your reflection, but obedient, predictable. My throat went dry. Why? Because they needed to see what broke you, she said. And then, what saved you? It was bigger than betrayal. Bigger than Ethan. This was an experiment in emotional engineering. Did you ever love him? I asked. No, she didn't even flinch. But you did. That's what made you real. Her words stung. Real. Had they ever seen me as anything else? You were never supposed to find the drive. Isla set up her promise. She kept it hidden until the last minute. That's when things started to unravel. What do you mean? Her eyes softened. Finally, some brief creeping through. Ethan started caring. Just a little. Enough to deep. Enough to fall out of protocol. A pulse of fury shook through me. You're telling me everything I went through was fake.
Staged.
Monitored. You watched me suffer, and you took notes. No, Isla stepped forward, voice breaking slightly. I lived it too. I broke too, Celine. And then I realized something that made me want to burn it all down. I held my breath. She whispered. We weren't the only ones. That's when she pulled another file from under her coat. CS 01. Monroe, Alina CS 05. Patel, Mira CS 07. Thompson, Elise, and scribbled in red ink beside each one, deceased. My stomach dropped. What happened to them? Isla's voice cracked. They didn't survive the aftermath. Some couldn't separate fiction from reality. Some were declared unstable and removed. Removed? I echoed, my hands trembling. She looked at me with something dangerously close to fear. They make people disappear, Celine. You weren't supposed to find this place. You weren't supposed to remember. My heart pounded so hard it echoed in my teeth. I'm not running. I said, standing straighter than I ever had. Not anymore. She didn't argue. She only nodded. Then we burn it down. As we walked out of that building together, two mirrored versions of the same wound, I looked at Isla one last time. Who started it? I asked. Who built this whole twisted experiment? She turned to me slowly, her voice flat. Your father. The night air tasted colder than it had any right to be. I stood beside Isla, under a sky so dark it swallowed every sound except my ragged breath. And then those three words hit me like a hammer to the chest. Your father. The name I'd carried in my heart as a fortress, now cracked, leaking secrets I wasn't prepared for. Your father, Isla repeated quietly, like saying it aloud might summon ghosts. I swallowed hard, feeling the past fracture beneath my feet. What do you mean? Dad was never involved in anything like this. She shook her head. You don't know what your family's been hiding. Not just from you, from everyone. Memories surged forward, jagged shards slicing through the fog, the hushed conversations I wasn't supposed to overhear. The locked basement door I was never allowed near. Dad's late nights, his phone calls and whispers, and the way Mom's eyes filled with unshed tears whenever I asked. Could it be true? Had my parents' fight about me chasing danger masked a deeper, darker truth? Isla led me to her car. The silence between us was heavy, but necessary. This project, Edenview, it wasn't just about science. It was legacy, control. Your father built it. He founded the institute under the guise of emotional renewal, but it was something else. Something twisted. I clenched my fists.
Why?
Why would he do this to me? To us? Her gaze pierced me. Because your mother tried to stop him. She knew the cost. That night I called Mom. Her voice trembled when she answered. Celine? Is everything okay? I need to know the truth. About Dad. About Edenview. About me. A long pause. Then a whisper, raw with years of pain. He never wanted you to be part of it. But once you were born, everything changed. You were the perfect subject. The daughter who could carry his legacy or break it. The walls I'd built around my childhood crumbled. Mom confessed things I wasn't ready to hear. How Dad's obsession with human behavior spiraled into dangerous territory. How Mom tried to protect me by keeping me away from his experiments. How she eventually left, taking only what she could carry, including me. Tears burned as I realized. My entire life was a battleground of love and lies. I was a hero, not because I survived a bad relationship, but because I was born into a war I never chose. Isla reached out, her voice steady. We're not just victims, Celine. We're the key to ending this. In that moment, beneath a sky heavy with stars and sorrow, I understood. Letting go wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about breaking chains, about rewriting my story, and about becoming the hero they never expected. The first time I heard the word target used in the same sentence as my name, my heart froze. Exposing Edenview wasn't just a battle of wills, it was a war. And the enemy? They didn't fight fair. Isla and I sat in my cramped apartment, the only place that felt safe. Papers and files spread across the table, documents she'd salvaged from the Institute servers, emails from whistleblowers, encrypted messages hinting at something called Project Phoenix. Once we go public, Isla said, voice steady but eyes haunted, they'll come for us. The same way they took the others. I swallowed hard, thinking of the names I'd seen in those files. Women who had disappeared without a trace. They're not just protecting a secret, I whispered. They're protecting a legacy of control and silence. The nights became restless. Shadows moved outside my windows. Phone calls with no one on the other end. Strange cars parked too long on the street. My parents' warnings echoed louder now than ever. Mom begged me to stop. Celine, some doors aren't meant to be opened. Dad's voice came through in fragments, cold, detached. You don't understand what you're meddling with. But I did understand, because every lie I uncovered was a thread pulling me closer to the truth. One evening, after a meeting with a former Edenview scientist who risked everything to talk, I came home to find my apartment ransacked. Files gone, laptop smashed, notes torn apart, and a single note left on the table, written in a handwriting I recognized all too well. Stop digging, or you'll disappear too. Fear clawed at me, but so did something fiercer: resolve. Isla squeezed my hand. They want us silent, but we have a choice. I nodded, heart pounding. Then we fight. We contacted Camille, the only journalist I trusted, someone who believed in the story without needing proof. The next days blurred into a whirlwind of clandestine meetings, encrypted calls, and last-minute escapes. But just when I thought we might win, the phone rang. A voice I never expected to hear. "Celine, it's your father." The ringtone shattered the silence, like a gunshot. When I saw his name on the screen, my hands trembled, an echo of every broken promise, every unanswered question. "Dad." I almost let it go to voicemail, but the truth had a way of demanding to be heard. "Celine." His voice was low, distant, weighted with things I couldn't name. "I'm listening," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "You don't understand what I did, what I had to do." I swallowed the lump growing in my throat. "Why, Dad? Why drag me into this nightmare?" He told me stories I never wanted to hear, about choices made in shadowed boardrooms, about a project spiraling beyond control, about sacrifices that shattered families. He said Edenview was supposed to be a breakthrough, a way to save broken minds. But power corrupted the vision, and I became collateral. "I never wanted you hurt. I try to protect you by keeping you close and away." His words burned like acid, twisting with guilt and regret. I thought I was angry, but when the tears came, they weren't just for me. They were for a father who loved me through the wrong hands, for a family fractured by secrets, and for a girl who had to become a hero simply to survive. "I'm done running," I whispered. "I'll finish this for all of us." He hesitated, then said, "Be careful. Some truths are more dangerous than lies." The line went dead, and with it, the last thread of my childhood unraveled. The moment the call ended, silence didn't bring peace. It brought a storm. Dad's words swirled in my mind like broken glass, his guilt, his warnings, the weight of a past I'd only just begun to uncover. But now, everything demanded action. I sat with Isla and Camille, the three of us caught in the eye of a hurricane we'd stirred ourselves. Camille laid out the plan, an exclusive interview exposing everything: Edenview, Project Phoenix, the faces behind it all. "The world needs to see this, Celine," she said. "But once it's out, there's no turning back." Isla's gaze was steady, fierce. "I want to face them, the people who made us their puppets." I nodded, but inside, a war raged. Could I expose my father? Could I face the man who gave me life and chains? The night before the interview, I stood alone by the window. The city lights flickered, but inside me, shadows grew. Was I a daughter? A victim? A rebel? Or something else entirely? Then an email pinged. No sender. No subject. Just one line. "Meet me at the old lighthouse. Midnight. Alone." Fear and curiosity tangled. I knew this was a crossroads, the path that would either break me or make me whole. I looked at my reflection, scarred, wary, but unyielding. The hero they never expected was ready. I grabbed my coat and stepped into the night. Because some truths aren't found in the light. They're found in the darkness we dare to enter. Midnight was colder than I expected. The wind sliced through my coat as I walked the narrow path toward the lighthouse perched on the cliff's edge. Its silhouette loomed like a silent sentinel, watching, waiting. I wasn't sure what I expected to find. An ally? An enemy? A ghost from the past? The salt air stung my lungs as I reached the rusted door. It creaked open before I could knock. Inside, shadows shifted. A figure stepped forward. Familiar, yet unrecognizable. "Celine," the voice said softly. It was him, Ethan Ward. His eyes held the same conflicted storm I'd seen before: regret, fear, something deeper. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. For lying. For using you." I swallowed the years of pain that wanted to erupt. "Why now?" I asked. "Why come back?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Because I couldn't protect you from the whole truth." He pulled out a worn folder. Inside, files, recordings, names, documents that tied Edenview not just to my father, but to a global network of power players manipulating lives for profit and control. "This goes beyond family," Ethan said. "They want to control not just emotions but futures. And they're coming for you next." My heart thundered, but something else surged, a fierce clarity. "I won't be a victim anymore." Ethan nodded, a fragile alliance forming. The lighthouse's beams swept over us, cutting through darkness. And in that moment, I realized heroes aren't born from perfection. They're forged in pain, choice, and the courage to face the unknown. Sometimes, the deepest wounds come not from strangers, but from those closest to you. Ethan's revelation at the lighthouse should have been a turning point, a moment of alliance. Instead, it sparked a storm inside me. How much of what I'd been told was true? How many lies had been spun so tightly I could barely breathe? I needed answers, and I needed to know who I could trust. Back in my apartment, I sifted through the documents Ethan gave me. Names, locations, dates, all tied to Edenview's web. But one name caught my eye, written hastily in the margin of a report. Camille. My heart slammed against my ribs. Could she be part of this? Was my oldest friend a traitor? Or something even worse? I confronted Camille the next day. Her eyes darkened. For a moment, I saw no recognition, only cold calculation. Then she spoke, voice low. "You were never supposed to find out. I was assigned to watch you, to report." Betrayal wasn't just a word anymore. It was a knife twisting in my chest. "Why?" I demanded. "How could you, after everything?" She hesitated, then said, "Because I believed it was the only way to survive. But it changed. I want out. I want to help." Torn between fury and disbelief, I faced a choice: turn my back on the only friend I had left, or risk everything by trusting her again. That night, alone in the darkness, I realized that in this twisted game, loyalty was the rarest currency. And sometimes the greatest betrayal comes from the heart. Trust felt like a fragile glass, one wrong move, and it would shatter into 1,000 pieces. Yet, with Camille's confession hanging between us, I had no choice but to walk that dangerous line. "We don't have much time," Camille whispered as we sat in my apartment, the air thick with tension. "I've managed to access something big, something Edenview never wanted anyone to find." She slid a USB drive across the table. "This contains files from an off-the-record project. They call it Phoenix Protocol. It's their plan to expand control beyond just subjects, but entire communities. Emotional manipulation on a massive scale." I swallowed hard. "How did you get this?" She looked away, voice barely a whisper. "Because I was part of it. I helped build it." The revelation struck me like lightning. Camille wasn't just a watcher. She was a creator. But her eyes held something raw, genuine. Regret. "I want to make it right," she said. "But I can't do it alone." Together, we started piecing the puzzle. Every file revealed deeper layers of corruption: doctors who played God, families torn apart, lives erased. And hidden among the data was a list of names. Women, men, children. People marked as high risk, people targeted for Project Phoenix. My own name was on it. That night, I lay awake, the weight of what I'd learned pressing down like a storm. I was no longer just a survivor of heartbreak or betrayal. I was the next battleground. But for the first time, I felt something I hadn't in years: hope. Because even the most fragile alliances could break chains. And even shattered secrets could spark revolutions that I never imagined. That the hardest part of fighting back would be the waiting. Isla, Camille, and I had what we needed: the files, the proof, the story that could shatter Edenview's empire. But releasing it was a gamble. A leap into a storm with no guarantee of landing safely. Every Night, I wrestled with ghosts. The memory of Ethan's lies, the echo of my father's cold excuses, the shadow of Camille's betrayal, and yet, beneath it all, a persistent ache. A love I couldn't fully let go. It twisted inside me, an invisible chain forged from hope and pain. I wanted to heal. But how do you heal when every part of you is stitched with memories that cut deep? The night before the release, I sat alone, staring at my reflection in the mirror. A girl who had been broken, rebuilt, and broken again, still standing, still fighting. Isla's words echoed softly in my mind. Sometimes the mirror shows more than your face. It shows your soul. We launched the exposé just after dawn, a detailed dossier sent to every major news outlet, every online platform. The response was immediate. Shadows stirred. Threats arrived. But so did messages of support from survivors, from strangers who had felt the same invisible chains. In the whirlwind, I found a strange kind of peace. Because sometimes letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to fight, to become the hero they never expected. The fallout was worse than I imagined. The world now knew Edenview's secrets, but so did those who wanted to keep them buried. Threats turned into whispers in the night, shadows stalking my every step. I stopped sleeping, haunted not just by fear, but by memories I couldn't escape. There was Ethan, the man who once held my heart, now a ghost haunting the edges of my mind. Did he ever truly love me? Or was I just another experiment? I wanted to hate him, but the love I felt, twisted, painful, clung like a second skin. Isla stood beside me, steady as ever. But I saw cracks in her armor too. She wrestled with her own ghosts, what it meant to be a mirror, a shadow, a reflection of a broken past. Then the messages started. Encrypted notes, hidden in files we thought safe. Hints of something deeper, another layer of the project, one neither Isla nor Camille had uncovered. A name, the architect. I knew this fight was far from over. Because sometimes, healing means facing the darkest corners of your own soul and the mysteries waiting there. I wanted to move forward, but the past wasn't done with me yet. Healing felt like chasing a mirage, always just beyond reach. Every step forward pulled me back into the past, tangled in memories of love, betrayal, and the pain I wasn't sure I'd ever escape. The name the architect haunted me, a ghost behind Edenview's facade, orchestrating the darkness from the shadows. Who were they? What did they want? And how deep did their control run? Isla and Camille grew restless, haunted by fragments of forgotten files, whisper rumors, and encrypted messages that painted a picture far worse than we imagined. Every lead felt like a trap, every truth a deeper cut. One rainy evening, I sat alone, clutching a faded photograph, me and Ethan, before everything shattered. I wanted to forgive. I wanted to heal. But love and pain were woven so tightly, I wasn't sure which was stronger. Then came the message. No sender. No signature. Just a single line. Look behind the mirror. It was a riddle and a warning. I stared at my reflection, searching for answers in the woman who stared back. Was I still the broken girl? The hero? Or something in between? The journey was far from over. Because sometimes, the only way to heal is to face the darkness and the mysteries waiting just beyond the glass that I stared at my reflection longer than I cared to admit, searching for something, anything that might explain the message. Look behind the mirror. The words echoed in my mind like a secret waiting to be unlocked. That night, I returned to the abandoned Edenview compound, alone this time. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the crunch of gravel under my feet. I found the same bathroom where I'd once sat, broken and confused, staring at my distorted reflection. There, I pulled the mirror away from the wall. Behind it, a small metal panel, locked tight. My hands trembled as I pried it open with a hairpin. Inside, a thin USB drive lay waiting, almost like it had been left for me. I plugged it into my laptop and held my breath. The files revealed hidden footage. Me, Isla, others, undergoing tests, conversations I didn't remember, moments manipulated and recorded. But then, a new face appeared on the screen, someone I never expected. A woman with cold, calculating eyes. She spoke softly but with authority. Healing is a choice. But first, you must confront the pain you refuse to see. The voice chilled me. This had to be the architect. Her image flickered, but her presence was undeniable. The revelation hit hard. The pain I'd been running from wasn't just my own. It was engineered, curated, and I was only beginning to understand how deep the betrayal ran. Yet beneath the despair, something new stirred, a fragile spark of determination. Maybe healing wasn't forgetting the past. Maybe it was embracing it, even when it hurt. I shut the laptop and looked at my reflection one last time. Behind a mirror, I'd found the next step of my journey. The image of that woman, the architect, haunted my thoughts day and night.
Who was she?
What had she taken from me, from all of us? And why did her cold words feel like a personal challenge? Isla and Camille were growing restless. We need to find her, Isla urged. She's the key to everything. But I was terrified, not of her power, but of what facing her would mean for me. Could I finally heal if the person who orchestrated my pain was standing in front of me? Or would it shatter me completely? My nights were restless. I couldn't sleep without dreaming of shattered glass and whispered lies. Love and pain tangled in my heart like a knot I couldn't undo. I wanted to let go, but the memories clung to me, vivid and raw. Then, a breakthrough. A clue buried deep in the files Camille decrypted. A location. An isolated estate, far from prying eyes. The architect's lair. We planned to confront her. Not with guns or threats, but with truth, our truth. I stood at the crossroads of fear and courage. The girl I was, and the hero I had become, were about to collide. Because healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about facing it. No matter how broken you feel, the drive to the estate was long and silent. Each mile closer to the architect's lair tightened the knot in my chest. Fear, anger, and something else I couldn't name. Isla sat beside me, her eyes sharp and alert. Camille rode shotgun, clutching the last batch of decrypted files like a lifeline. The estate emerged from the mist, a sprawling mansion swallowed by towering oaks and shadows. Its cold stone facade seemed to breathe secrets, secrets that had haunted me for years. Inside, the air was thick with history and hidden whispers. We moved quietly through halls lined with portraits, faces frozen in time, some watching us with unsettling familiarity. Then, the first shock, a room filled with monitors, screens flickering with footage of subjects, people I knew, people I never wanted to remember. And in the center, a single chair, empty but ominous. Suddenly, a voice filled the room, calm, commanding, almost maternal. "Welcome, Celine. I've been expecting you." The architect stepped forward. Not the shadowy villain I imagined, but a woman with tired eyes and a quiet strength. Our confrontation was raw, words sharp, wounds reopened and examined. She spoke of pain as power, control as love twisted beyond recognition. And the hardest truth, she believed we were the experiments that failed her. Torn between rage and understanding, I realized healing was more complicated than I'd ever imagined. It wasn't a destination. It was a battlefield. I looked at Isla and Camille, my fragile, fierce allies, and knew this was just the beginning. The room felt heavier than ever as I faced her, the architect. The woman who had controlled my past, manipulated my pain, and orchestrated the nightmare I'd lived through. Her tired eyes met mine, not with hatred, but with a strange sadness, like a parent watching a child struggle to grow. "I created this world," she said softly, "but I never wanted it to consume you. You, Isla, Camille, you were never just subjects. You were my mistakes, my regrets." For the first time, I saw her as something more than a villain, someone broken in ways I was only beginning to understand. The years of betrayal, love, and pain inside me surged forward, an emotional tempest that threatened to drown me. But standing there, I realized something crucial. Healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about reclaiming my story. "I'm not your failure," I said firmly. "I'm not your mistake. Isla stepped beside me, Camille behind her. Together, we were stronger than the shadows of our past. The architect nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Then break free. Break the chains I built. Outside, dawn broke, flooding the estate with light, warm, pure, promising. We walked away from Edenview's ruins, scars and all. I knew the pain would always be part of me. The memories, the love, the loss, they were threads woven into the fabric of who I was. But for the first time, I felt whole. Not because the past was gone, but because I had survived it. Because I had chosen to become the hero they never expected.
The end.